Alright guys, what is up? So if you were at all like me, you may have found yourself having some issues with latency. Let's say for example, let me switch this resolution so it's not plaguing you guys too much. But in this video I'm going to talk about latency and how to reduce it, especially if you have a widescreen monitor or ultra widescreen monitor such as I do. It is a 49-inch Odyssey G9 from Samsung. And no matter what I do, it seems like I still had some latency issues. So let's tackle these one at a time. First, we're going to start with settings. So settings and system, quite simply, you can just go to display, go to advanced display, and make sure that you have the highest refresh rate possible, because there's going to be a few, most likely. Now, if that's in order and you have the highest refresh rate, then there may be one of two issues if you're not seeing the refresh rate that your monitor is supposed to have. You can go to display, adapter properties, and then go to the driver, update driver. And then it'll give you this, search automatically for drivers. You don't want to browse for computer because that's not going to be on your computer. If you find a driver, obviously install it because that's going to be the most up to date. So if everything else is good, then go ahead and just check here, make sure it says 240 Hertz, apply, okay, all set. Okay, so let's say everything is good with the monitor. Go ahead and check graphics. Now, I would recommend going to change default graphics settings because what it does, it gives you access to hardware accelerated GPU scheduling and variable refresh rate. That is if you have adaptive sync and whatever else. So when possible, higher frame rate, reduce screen tearing, yada yada. Simple enough. Okay, the other thing is when you have a list of applications, and if you don't see it, then I suggest browsing, because for example, this is my gaming, I guess, folder, hard drive. Has everything, but I can't actually select an application. Anyway, you get the idea. So let's say there's an application here that I wanted to add, then I would add. So what you do is once it's added, it will automatically assign a priority to it, kind of like what has happened here with Rocket League. So I want high performance. I don't want Windows deciding because it is somewhat inconsistent. I want high performance in general. Now when you do this, you will have to restart the computer and just go ahead and let the magic happen after that. So let's say we've done everything here. Then next up is going to be taking a look at personalization. So here you'll see things like transparency effects. These are useless. They do not help performance. They in fact diminish it. It's the same with most of personalization. You've got themes, all this crap. Just ignore most of it. And if you have the ability to disable pretty much anything, I would suggest it. Other than that, keep it on default. If it doesn't give you the ability to just disable, then just leave it on default. It should be an optimized default. So personalization start, show recently added apps. This is something I'm going to go ahead and get rid of as well, just because it keeps tabs and it uses up some of the RAM. Every little bit of RAM that's used up, especially if it's from a different source, is going to be adding up to a performance loss. So that is pretty much everything else. Here, play and discover games. Nope, none of this is useful, especially for gaming. Go ahead and turn it off. Applications. This is more preference, so go ahead and deep delve into it if you can, if you have the time, because it will be worth it. Typing, speech, okay, nope, gaming. So Xbox Game Bar, turn that off. There's so many better applications to use than Xbox Game Bar. Captures, so many other applications better to use. For example, what I'm using, Gamecaster, turn it off. Game mode, make sure that's on. This is going to optimize everything. All the background processes that take up space, take up RAM, CPU, GPU, this is going to optimize it. It's going to help turn those off. Accessibility. So this is a little weird. The visual effects, make sure all those are turned off because they can diminish a lot of your performance as well. Color filters, make sure they're off. contrast themes, and mouse. So mouse is the other thing. Make sure this is off, and then go to mouse here and additional mouse settings. So pointer options, there we go, enhanced pointer precision. So especially if you are on mouse and keyboard, you will find you have a lot higher latency. You might have a little bit more fine-tuned mouse performance, but the latency is exponentially higher as compared to being off. So I suppose it is up to you guys if you want the performance. I suggest having it off, but if you do like having a bit finer aim, which can also be resolved with having a better mouse, then I recommend just having it off. Okay, so moving on, go back, see, was there anything else? No, there was not. Eye control is like Toby. If you don't have that, don't worry about it. Privacy and security, we'll go to Windows Security, and let's make sure I remember the right one. Okay, so I think it is device performance, no, security, core isolation. That's what we're looking at. So core isolation, memory integrity, this, if you don't game, if you don't look for performance increases, then go ahead and keep this on. But this isn't even a video for you, so I don't know why you're watching it up to this point. Have it off, because odds are you're not using this computer to do anything aside from gaming, maybe some productivity. If you're gonna watch porn or something like that, have this on, because you're dumb for doing that in the first place. It's bad stuff. Don't watch it. Anyway, going back, let's go ahead and make sure we tackled everything else. Okay, everything else is good. Virus protection, virus threat protection settings. Cloud delivered takes up a lot of background processing, and it's not going to be turned off by game mode. That's part of the issue with these opposing programs here. Is game mode here, what we turned on, it's going to optimize that background performance, make sure there aren't as many apps running. This will run regardless because this is within Windows Security. Windows Security takes a higher priority and will not be turned off unless you do it manually. So I suggest turning it off. Everything else, go ahead and leave on. So let's go ahead and get back out of here. Check out the other aspects of privacy and security. So general, I suggest having all of these off because it's just you're going to use your information, and it's unnecessary for you to be feeding information to something, a company that you've already invested a lot of money into buying the product. Why let them continue getting an investment out of you? Have it off. Besides, it helps performance to have it off as well. So, inking and typing personalization. It's useful whenever you're doing browser searches and stuff, sure, because it'll bring up the most common searches for you. Just have it off. Finish out what you're typing. It's not that hard because it's going to give you a lot better performance. Actually, a lot better than you would think. Diagnostics and feedback. Have this off. There's no reason for you to have it on unless you were just super concerned with every troubleshooter that comes with a computer being the most up-to-date. Which, guess what? Microsoft doesn't really update troubleshooters too often because they just do it to cover their ass in the first place. Just have it off. Search permissions. I would go ahead and keep moderate. Microsoft account, Windows search. I thought I turned this off. Yeah, that's going to improve performance. Windows search. No. No. Yeah. Go and have all that off as well. Here I am increasing my own performance. Damn. Okay. Advanced indexing options. Advanced. And these aren't enabled in the first place. They are. Go ahead and disable. And then there are all these app permissions. I recommend having all of them off because they constantly run. And game mode is only so good at closing out so many applications. Okay. Most of these applications do not need to have access to these permissions in the first place. Like microphone, just have it on for things such as desktop apps that you use for games. Gamecaster currently in use. The only way that you guys are hearing me right now is by having this setting on and then turning everything else off that isn't necessary to have it, especially Cortana, bitch. That's pretty much it. Just go through and disable what you guys can. There are certain preferences like email, for example. If you want to have email access at all times to mail and calendar, I don't use it. I also don't use the people application, so I have it off. If you can have it off, it's going to increase performance. Just keep that rule of thumb. Hold on to it. Okay. Of course, the other thing is just make sure everything's up to date, because there's going to be performance increases just based on the most up-to-date software and them getting rid of bugs that they put out in the first place. Anyway, that's pretty much it for settings. The next thing is going to be the Nvidia control panel. Now, you will get some varying opinions as to what is going to work best, but let me tell you this. Me personally, I have an RTX 3090 GPU. So this has 24 gigabytes of virtual RAM available. I don't have to worry too much about space or performance issues. So what I do is I optimize that performance, because in game you can only have so many frames per second, and half of the time it doesn't even reach your monitor's refresh rate, which is, on the box what it's marketed for, like 1 millisecond response speed, 175 hertz per second. Okay, so that's good stuff, but if your GPU can't reach 175, then you're likely going to want to optimize it within this control panel, within the settings in the first place, right? That's why we're here. So even if you do have a super high power GPU, it is useful to choose the best options for it. For example, here you have the option to use ambient occlusion. I have it on performance mode because I still want the increase in realism, but I don't want the loss in performance, at least not a drastic loss. If you have something like even a 3060, I would recommend just have this off completely. But me, I'm going to use performance. So low latency mode, I have it on ultra just because I use, here, I'll use it for example. So here, ultra prioritizes latency by fully minimizing queues, yada yada, vsync latency, and gsync. So I have both of those on for Warzone. That's what I play the most. Even if I'm playing Rocket or anything different. I normally enable both of these because you'll see later some of the other options that we have within control panel will benefit each other. So monitor technology is G-Sync compatible. GL, make sure that you select a specific GPU. Most people, I understand, only have a single GPU, but if you don't use auto select, it's not spending resources or time from the CPU and GPU searching for another non-existent GPU, if that makes sense. So power management mode, maximum performance. Hell yeah, let's go. Highest available refresh rate, that's what we want. Shader cast, unless you have something weird like 8 gigabytes of RAM, which I don't know why you'd be watching this, you're kind of just screwed. Use unlimited. You have multiple options, sure, I get it. Do not use a driver default because it's still going to cap it at some point. That's all those shaders that compile and everything else whenever you load into a game and you're on PC. Shaders compiling, you sit there in the lobby for 5 minutes waiting for it to just complete and install, right? That's what this is for. Use unlimited. So, texture filtering, anisotropic. So I would recommend having this on because you are going to have a higher performance increase regardless. So let's go ahead and highlight what I'm talking about. On for higher performance with a minimal loss in image quality. So again, higher performance, hell yeah. Especially minimal loss in image quality. Let's go. Let's freaking go. This is more of a preference, and it depends on your GPU. So high-end GPU like 3090 or even a 3080 Ti, 3080, that's going to be something where you probably want to go ahead and do allow. Other than that, you might want to clamp it. Let's say you have the 3060 or below. It's possible to just go ahead and want to clamp it, because that's going to lead to higher performance on those GPUs. Quality, high performance typically. I've seen people use performance and it works just fine as well. I suppose that's more of a personal preference. Texture filtering, trilinear optimization. So higher performance, minimal loss in image quality. Same thing as a good old texture filtering. Have it on. Threaded optimization. I'd recommend having it on because newer applications benefit from it. Triple buffering. Do not use this unless you're using vertical sync. It is absolutely useless and running for no reason if you do not use vertical sync. So vertical sync. This is one of the things that I've not seen like anybody on YouTube really talk about it. But if you use G-Sync or vertical sync, fast is going to be your best option. Reason being is if you read this down here, renders unconstrained. What it ends up doing is it drops the frames that are being rendered too quickly, and it delivers a latency that's close to it being off. So what's not to love? The other thing is just make sure it's on one pre-rendered queued frames. So that way it's not trying to render and output 2 frames at the same time, because that can also lead to screen tearing. Just bad overall. So screen resolution, make sure that it is native, because if it's not, then you're wrong. It's that simple. You're going to be using a lower resolution for either no reason, or it's going to be a lower resolution that's giving better performance but even worse image quality. It's a trade-off. Just keep that in mind. You still can make that decision, but I wouldn't. Here, just to benefit color settings, it's not necessarily like latency or performance or anything like that, but here use 10 BPC if you have it with a full dynamic range. Let's see. No, this doesn't matter. It didn't even do anything, but okay. Oh, I did change the resolution. Oops. Yeah, so that way you guys aren't getting screwed by my 49-inch monitor. Here we are. All right. So next up, G-Sync. Go ahead and just enable full screen, because if you enable windowed in full screen every time you exit out of a game to get, say, to this menu, you want to get something on your taskbar, then it's still going to be using G-Sync, which is, irrelevant if you're outside of a game, making both your monitor and your GPU work harder than necessary. The other thing is video color settings. Go ahead and have that on advanced with a full spectrum. Okay, so that's pretty much all for control panel. There are a couple other things, and this is one that I'm not completely rehearsed in, so you'll have to bear with me here. Let's go into Device Manager. And I'll make this bigger for you guys. So if we go to network adapters, remember we're increasing performance and lowering latency. So if you are wired in, you're going to end up using an Ethernet controller. If you're using Wi-Fi, you're going to end up using a Wi-Fi controller. Simple enough, right? So I use a wired Cat 8 Ethernet cable. Advanced EEE is essentially a way for the computer to maximize within a economical range the amount of power that it's using to maintain and have the best connection possible. Now the downfall to this is if you enable it, it's going to be economical. Screw the economy. I want the best performance possible. Disabled. ARP, go ahead and leave that on. Max support speed, put it at the highest it'll go. If your computer support it, if your GPU support it, highest it'll go. That's all there is to it. And yeah, energy efficient Ethernet, that's what the EEE is. Energy efficient Ethernet, max support speed, advanced this. Disabled, no thanks. Flow control, a lot of these you're just going to go ahead and leave alone. Green Ethernet, disable. Shit's stupid. Interrupt moderation. I can't remember if this is something I want to have off or on. We'll leave it alone for now. Jumbo frame, disabled. Offload, enabled. Maximum number RSS queue. Can't remember what that's for. Network address, I'll just leave that alone as well. That's offload, power saving mode disabled, priority VLAN enabled, 512, receive side scaling, duplex, full duplex. Do not use auto negotiation. I believe that's the default setting. Use 2.5. Checksum. On shutdown links. Let's go ahead and put not speed down because I believe that affects the startup and shutdown speed of the Ethernet when it's connected. So, nada. Then if you guys are on Wi-Fi, you can do a lot of the same stuff, except you're going to have differing options because it's not wired. It's a completely different connection setting. Therefore, I would recommend just looking up online what you guys want to do and what's the best settings for you. I could potentially make a video on that. Just let me know if you want to, if you would like me to. Oh, the one thing I can say is channel width. Go ahead and have that on auto for pretty much all of these because 20 megahertz does nothing. Okay, so that's pretty much it for that. I suppose while we're here, we could go ahead and look at display adapters again. That just brings up pretty much the driver update, which I already went through in the settings application. So that's about it, guys. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, want another video, or even just want to say thanks, I really do appreciate it. You guys are the reason why I'm doing this in the first place. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure stuff out myself, and I'm just here to help. Thanks for watching, and you all have a great weekend.